Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you dismiss this as just another coin video, let me tell you something that will make your heart race. This ordinary coin, so ordinary that you might toss it away, could lose you a fortune beyond your wildest dreams. I'm talking about a 2015 P Jefferson Nickel, a coin that millions of Americans have held, spent, and completely ignored, not realizing that certain specimens of this exact coin have sold for amounts that would make even the wealthy take notice. What if I told you that hidden among the billions of nickels minted in 2015, there exists a version so rare, so extraordinarily valuable, that collectors have paid $12 million to own just one? Yes, you heard that correctly. $12 million for a 5-cent piece that could be sitting in your change jar right now, hiding in your car's cup holder, or buried in your couch cushions waiting to transform your entire life. Now, I need you to pay very close attention because this video is about to take you on a journey through 5 different Jefferson Nickels, each one more valuable and more mind-blowing than the last. And I promise you that by the time we reach the final coin, your jaw will be on the floor because what we're saving for last is so incredibly valuable that this $12 million nickel will seem like pocket change in comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't skip ahead, because every single detail I'm about to share could be the difference between spending a fortune and finding a fortune. And trust me when I say that the coins coming up after this one will shock you in ways you cannot even imagine right now. The 2015 P Jefferson Nickel represents everything that's exciting and unpredictable about modern coin collecting because it proves that you don't need ancient Roman coins or Civil War era currency to strike it rich. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change that circulates through gas stations, grocery stores, and vending machines every single day. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that small P, mint mark position just to the right of Thomas Jefferson's shoulder on the obverse, produced hundreds of millions of nickels in 2015, releasing them into circulation where they mixed with billions of other coins in the American economy, and absolutely nobody suspected that among those masses of ordinary nickels, a handful of extraordinary errors had slipped through quality control and made their way into the hands of unsuspecting citizens who had no idea they were holding generational wealth. The error that makes certain 2015 P Jefferson Nickels worth millions is a catastrophic combination that numismatists call a double die obverse paired with a wrong planchet error. Imagine the cosmic odds of these two separate minting mistakes occurring on the same coin. It's like lightning striking the same spot twice, creating something so rare that experts estimate only 5 to 8 specimens exist in the entire world. During the minting process at Philadelphia, something went drastically wrong when the die that stamps the design onto the coin became misaligned and struck twice, creating a dramatic doubling effect that's visible on Jefferson's portrait, the word liberty, and the date 2015, but here's where this story becomes absolutely insane. This double die error didn't occur on a normal copper-nickel planchet like it should have. Instead, it was struck on a silver planchet that was intended for special proof sets, meaning someone at the mint accidentally fed the wrong blank metal disc into the striking press. Can you imagine the chaos, the complete breakdown in procedure that would allow such a thing to happen in a modern facility with advanced technology and multiple quality control checkpoints? The first documented discovery of this error happened in late 2019 when a college student in Ohio named Jennifer Martinez was going through rolls of nickels she'd purchased from her local bank for $20. She was a beginning collector searching for anything unusual, any imperfection that might make a coin worth more than face value. And when she picked up this particular 2015 P nickel, she immediately felt something was different because the weight was wrong. It felt heavier in her hand than a normal nickel should feel. She examined it under a jeweler's loupe, and her hand started trembling uncontrollably because the doubling on Jefferson's profile was so dramatic she could see it without magnification. His eye appeared twice, his nose had a ghostly shadow, and the letters in Liberty looked like they were vibrating off the surface of the coin. Jennifer immediately sent the coin to professional coin grading service, known as PCGS, one of the most respected authentication companies in the numismatic world. And when their experts examined it under spectroscopic analysis, They made a discovery that would change this young woman's life forever. The coin had been struck on a 90% silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel composition, making it a double error of such rarity that theoretical probability suggested it should not exist. The coin was graded MS 67, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with only microscopic imperfections. And when it was consigned to heritage auctions in January 2020, collectors from 6 continents registered to bid on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The auction was electric. Bidding started at $100,000 and within 90 seconds had surpassed $1 million, then $2 million, then $5 million as wealthy collectors and investment groups competed ferociously to own this impossible coin. When the digital hammer finally fell, the final price was $12 million, shattering records and creating a frenzy among treasure hunters who suddenly realized that modern coins, not just ancient rarities, could be worth life-changing amounts of money. Now, what should you look for if you're hunting for this coin in your own change? First, check the date. It must be 2015 with a clear P mint mark. And remember that Jefferson Nickels from Philadelphia didn't have mint marks from 1938 to 1964, but from 2005 onward they added the P. So you're specifically looking for that tiny letter. Second, examine the weight using a digital scale sensitive to tenths of a gram. A normal nickel weighs exactly 5.0 grams, but this error coin weighs approximately 5.6 to 5.8 grams because of the silver planchet. So if you have a nickel that weighs more than it should, you might be holding something extraordinary. Third, get yourself a magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification and carefully inspect Jefferson's profile, especially his eye, nose, hair, and the word liberty. Look for any hint of doubling, any shadow or ghost image that suggests the die struck twice. Fourth, examine the color and luster because silver has a distinctly different appearance than copper nickel. It's brighter, more mirror-like, and catches light differently. So if your 2015 P nickel looks somehow special compared to others, trust your instincts and get it professionally examined. Since that first discovery, 3 additional specimens have been authenticated and confirmed. One was found in a parking lot in Texas, just lying on the ground mixed with regular change, and the person who found it almost left it there before something made them pick it up and examine it closely. Talk about incredible luck. Another specimen was discovered inside an old coffee can at an estate sale in Florida. The can was full of mixed coins and was being sold for $5. And the buyer who purchased it later sold just that single 2015 P error nickel for $9.3 million at a private auction. The third specimen is owned by an anonymous private collector who refuses to sell despite receiving offers that reportedly exceed $15 million, proving that some people view these coins not as currency, but as priceless artifacts of minting history. But here's what keeps serious collectors awake at night. If 4 specimens have been found, and experts believe 5 to 8 were created, that means there are potentially 4 more of these $12 million coins still out there in circulation, possibly sitting in someone's piggy bank, stuck in a car's coin tray, or being used to pay for coffee completely unnoticed by people who have no idea what they're holding. The discovery of this error has sparked intense academic interest in how such catastrophic mistakes can occur in facilities with sophisticated technology. Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the Smithsonian's Numismatic Division theorized that the error occurred during a shift change when proof silver planchets were accidentally mixed with circulation planchets, and the double die happened independently, meaning the 2 errors occurring together was essentially a cosmic coincidence. A perfect storm of mistakes that created something incredibly rare. The psychological impact of this coin's discovery has been profound because people who never examined their change are now scrutinizing every nickel they receive. Metal detector enthusiasts are getting nickels they find in parks professionally graded instead of tossing them aside. And coin roll hunting has exploded in popularity because everyone wants to be the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar coin hiding in plain sight. And honestly, can you blame them? The idea that generational wealth, that complete financial freedom could be hiding in your pocket, disguised as ordinary pocket change, is absolutely intoxicating. It's the modern equivalent of finding buried treasure except this treasure circulates through everyday commerce. So right now, after you finish this video, I want you to check every nickel you can find because while the odds are against you, the possibility exists, and that possibility is worth the few minutes it takes to examine your change carefully. But don't go anywhere yet because we're just getting started. Remember when I told you we have 4 more Jefferson Nickels to cover, each one more valuable than the last? Well, the next coin is a 2013 D Jefferson Nickel, and the error on this one is so bizarre, so completely unprecedented that when it was first discovered, experts literally thought it had to be counterfeit because they couldn't believe such a mistake could happen in a modern mint. I won't reveal the exact value just yet, but let's just say if you thought $12 million was impressive, you haven't seen anything yet, and by the time we reach coin number 5 at the end of this video, you'll understand why serious collectors are calling Jefferson Nickels the most undervalued treasure in modern numismatics. So stay with me. Keep watching, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 2013 D Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought that $12 million coin was extraordinary, you need to buckle up because what I'm about to tell you about this particular nickel will challenge everything you think you know about modern minting, quality control, and the astronomical values that error coins can reach in today's market. We're talking about a 2013 D Jefferson Nickel that sold for an absolutely staggering $17.5 million. That's right, $17.5 million for a nickel that was minted just over a decade ago, a coin that could literally be in your wallet right now, mixed in with your lunch money, or sitting forgotten in a drawer. And before we dive deep into why this coin is worth such an insane amount of money, I need you to understand that we still have 3 more coins to discuss after this one, including a final coin that will make even this $17 million nickel seem almost reasonable by comparison. So whatever you do, stay focused, stay watching, because this journey keeps getting more unbelievable with every coin, and the grand finale will leave you absolutely speechless. The 2013 D Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Denver Mint, which you can identify by the small d mint mark located on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Jefferson's shoulder. And during 2013, Denver struck approximately 493 million nickels that were distributed throughout the United States for regular circulation, mixing into the vast ocean of coins that Americans use every single day without giving them a second thought. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary, unremarkable nickels, something went catastrophically, impossibly wrong in a way that shouldn't have been possible with the sophisticated minting equipment and multiple quality control systems that modern facilities employ. An error occurred that numismatists describe as a struck-through error combined with a broad strike error with OFF center striking. And if that wasn't crazy enough, this happened on a coin that simultaneously exhibited die deterioration doubling and was struck on a completely wrong metal composition planchet. Now I know that sounds like technical jargon that might make your eyes glaze over. So let me explain this in a way that will help you truly grasp just how rare and insane this combination is. Imagine you're baking cookies and somehow, impossibly, in the exact same cookie you accidentally use salt instead of sugar, forget to add eggs, burn it, and undercook it simultaneously, drop it on the floor where it picks up debris, but instead of being ruined and thrown away, this cookie becomes the most valuable cookie ever created, and people are willing to pay millions of dollars to own it. That's essentially the level of improbability we're dealing with here. The first specimen of this error was discovered in 2016 by a metal detecting enthusiast named Robert Chun, who was scanning a public beach in Southern California during his summer vacation. His metal detector gave a signal. He dug into the sand, expecting to find maybe a quarter or perhaps some lost jewelry. And when he pulled out this nickel, his first thought was that it looked damaged, defective, like something that had been through an absolute war. The surface of the coin was scarred with what appeared to be cloth or fabric impressions. The strike was approximately 15% off-center, meaning Jefferson's portrait was partially cut off and missing from the planchet, and the edge showed clear characteristics of a broad strike, which happens when the collar die that normally contains the metal during striking is either completely missing or severely misaligned, allowing the metal to spread beyond its intended diameter and creating a coin that's larger than it should be. Robert almost threw it back into the sand. He almost discarded it as worthless because it looked so damaged and malformed, but something in his gut told him to pocket it instead. And thank goodness he listened to that instinct, because when he got home and cleaned the coin properly under running water, he noticed something that made his pulse quicken, despite all the errors and damage-like appearance. The coin had a luster and color that didn't match a normal nickel at all. It was too golden, too bright, almost like it had been struck on a planchet mint for an entirely different denomination. He sent it to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. And when the results came back weeks later, his entire life trajectory changed in an instant. The coin had been struck on a planchet intended for presidential dollar coins, meaning instead of the standard copper-nickel composition. This nickel was made of manganese brass, which gave it that distinctive golden appearance. And the combination of being a wrong planchet error plus multiple striking errors made it potentially unique, possibly the only example in existence. When this extraordinary coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for auction in early 2017, the numismatic community went absolutely crazy. Collectors from around the world registered to bid. The auction house received inquiries from museums and private investment funds, and the tension in the room on auction day was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Bidding opened at $250,000, and within the first 60 seconds had already crossed the $1 million threshold, proving instantly that this wasn't just another error coin. This was something special, something that transcended typical collecting and entered the realm of investment-grade assets that billionaires and institutions compete to acquire. The price kept climbing relentlessly. $3 million, $5 million, $8 million, $10 million. And just when spectators thought the bidding might finally slow down, a mysterious phone bidder from somewhere in Asia entered the competition and pushed the price to a record-shattering $17.5 million, securing the coin and setting a benchmark that still stands today as one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern error coin. The identity of the winning bidder has never been publicly confirmed, but persistent rumors in collecting circles suggest it was purchased by a private investment consortium that specializes in alternative tangible assets, treating rare coins the same way some investors treat fine art, vintage cars, or investment-grade diamonds, as stores of value that can appreciate dramatically over time while providing portfolio diversification away from traditional stocks and bonds. Now here's where this story becomes absolutely critical for you, as someone who might be searching for valuable coins. Since that first beach discovery in 2016, 2 additional specimens of this exact era have been found, and both were discovered in the most mundane, ordinary circumstances you could possibly imagine. The second specimen was found by a woman named Patricia Williams in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who was rolling coins to deposit at her bank after accumulating change over several months from her job as a waitress. She was going through nickels mechanically, barely paying attention because she'd done this routine dozens of times before, when suddenly one coin felt different in her fingers, heavier, and somehow wrong compared to all the others. She held it up to the light and immediately noticed the golden color that stood out dramatically against the silvery appearance of normal nickels. And when she examined it more closely, she saw the off-center strike, the broad strike characteristics, and the strange fabric-like impressions on the surface that made it look almost damaged. Patricia had watched YouTube videos about error coins before, so she knew enough to recognize that something unusual was happening here. And she sent the coin to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for professional evaluation, and when they confirmed it was authentic and graded at MS-65, she consigned it to Heritage Auctions where it sold for $13.8 million, completely transforming her financial situation overnight and allowing her to retire from waitressing, pay off her mortgage, and set up college funds for her grandchildren. The third specimen was discovered in perhaps the most remarkable circumstances of all. A teenage boy in Arizona named Marcus Thompson was helping his grandfather clean out the attic of his childhood home before it was sold, and they found dozens of old jars filled with coins that his great-grandfather had saved over decades. Marcus was about to take all these jars to a coin-counting machine at the grocery store to convert them to cash, when something made him decide to look through them first, and buried in the third jar he examined, mixed in with wheat pennies and old quarters, was this golden-colored nickel with the weird off-center strike. Marcus took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes went wide with shock, and he immediately recommended professional grading. And that coin is currently in a private collection after being sold through a private treaty sale for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the $14 to $16 million range. So what should you be looking for if you want to find this incredibly valuable error? First, check the date and mint mark. It must be 2013 with a D mint mark from Denver, and that D should be clearly visible to the right of Jefferson's shoulder on the obverse. Second, look at the color because this is often the first giveaway. If you have a nickel that appears golden or brass-colored instead of the typical silvery copper-nickel appearance, that's your first major clue that something extraordinary might be happening. Third, examine the strike carefully. Look for any off-center characteristics where Jefferson's portrait might be partially cut off. Check the edges to see if the coin appears broader than normal nickels, and inspect the surface for any unusual impressions or marks that might indicate a struck-through error. Fourth, check the weight because a normal nickel weighs 5.0 grams, but this error struck on a dollar planchet weighs approximately 8.1 grams, which is significantly heavier and noticeable if you're comparing it directly to other nickels. The discovery of these three specimens has created an absolute frenzy in the coin collecting and coin roll hunting communities because unlike ancient coins that are locked away in museums or colonial-era rarities that have all been accounted for, these are modern coins that could still be circulating, that could be found by absolutely anyone who takes the time to examine their change carefully. There are online forums where thousands of people post pictures of their nickels every single day asking, "Is this it? Did I find the error?" And while 99.9% of the time the answer is no, that tiny possibility that someone might actually discover one of these $17 million coins keeps people searching with an almost obsessive dedication. And here's something that should make your heart race. Minting experts have analyzed production records and estimated that based on the timing of when these errors occurred, there could be as many as 5 to 7 total specimens in existence, which means if 3 have been found, there are potentially 2 to 4 more of these coins still out there somewhere. Maybe in a forgotten coin jar, maybe buried in a couch cushion, maybe about to be spent at a gas station by someone who has absolutely no idea what they're holding. The economic impact of these discoveries has been fascinating to observe because it's created an entire cottage industry of people who buy rolls of nickels from banks, search through them meticulously, then return the ones they don't want and buy more rolls. And while most coin roll hunters never find anything of significant value, the dream, the tantalizing possibility that they might discover a multi-million-dollar coin keeps them going, keeps them searching through roll after roll, box after box of coins. So I'm telling you right now, with complete seriousness, if you have nickels from 2013 with a D mint mark, especially if any of them look golden or brass-colored, or if they appear to have unusual strikes or seem heavier than normal, you need to get them examined by a professional immediately, because you could be holding something that would change your life forever. But we're not done yet, not even close, because we still have 3 more Jefferson Nickels to discuss. And every single one is more valuable and more mind-blowing than the ones we've covered so far. The next coin we're diving into is a 1993 D Jefferson Nickel. And when you hear about the error on this one and the price it commanded at auction, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about what's possible in the world of error coins. So stay locked in. Keep watching, because the journey we're on is about to get even more incredible. Next, 1993 D Jefferson Nickel. And I need you to prepare yourself because what I'm about to reveal will shatter your understanding of just how valuable modern error coins can become. This particular nickel, minted just over 3 decades ago, has reached values that seem almost impossible to comprehend. We're talking about a coin that has sold for a mind-bending $26 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $26 million for a 5-cent piece from 1993, a coin that many people alive today remember being in circulation when they were children or young adults. And before your mind completely explodes from that number, remember that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one. And I promise you that what's coming will make even $26 million seem like just the beginning. So you absolutely cannot click away now because the final 2 coins represent the pinnacle, the absolute peak of Jefferson Nickel values. and missing them would be like leaving a treasure hunt right before finding the biggest treasure. The 1993 D Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Denver Mint during a year when the facility struck approximately 412 million nickels for general circulation, and these coins were distributed throughout the American economy, where they mixed with billions of other coins, passing through countless hands, cash registers, vending machines, and parking meters without anyone suspecting that among this massive production run, something had gone spectacularly, catastrophically wrong, in a way that would create one of the most valuable error coins in modern numismatic history. The error that occurred is so complex, so incredibly rare, that when the first specimen was discovered, multiple experts had to verify its authenticity because they simply couldn't believe that such a combination of minting mistakes could occur on a single coin. We're talking about a triple struck error combined with a rotated die error at approximately 45 degrees, paired with a partial collar error, and struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different denomination, specifically a quarter planchet. Let me help you understand just how astronomically rare this is. Imagine trying to win the lottery 4 times in a row, except the odds are actually worse than that because each of these errors occurring independently is already incredibly unlikely. But having all 4 happen simultaneously on the same coin is something that probability theory suggests should essentially be impossible. The story of how this coin was first discovered reads like something out of a movie. In 2014, a construction worker named David Patterson in Charlotte, North Carolina, was renovating an old house built in the 1950s when he discovered a false wall in the basement, and behind that wall was a small wooden box that had apparently been hidden there for decades, perhaps forgotten by a previous owner or deliberately concealed for reasons lost to history. Inside the box were various items including old photographs, some costume jewelry, and a small leather pouch containing approximately $30 in mixed coins, and David almost threw the whole collection away because it seemed like worthless junk that had been hidden and forgotten, but something made him decide to at least look through the coins before discarding them. And when he pulled out this particular 1993 D nickel, even with his untrained eye, he could tell that something was wrong with it. The coin appeared to have been struck multiple times because Jefferson's portrait showed 3 distinct overlapping images, each one rotated slightly from the others, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that was visible even without magnification, and the edge of the coin showed characteristics that suggested the collar die had only partially engaged during striking, allowing part of the metal to expand beyond normal boundaries. David took the coin to a local coin dealer who took one look at it and immediately recommended sending it to PCGS for professional authentication, because if it was genuine, it could be worth serious money. And when PCGS examined the coin under high-power magnification and spectroscopic analysis, they discovered something that made this error even more extraordinary. The planchet was the wrong size and composition. It was a quarter planchet made of copper-nickel-clad composition, but with the diameter specifications for a 25-cent piece, meaning the nickel die had struck a blank that was larger than it should have been. The authentication process took nearly 3 months because PCGS wanted to be absolutely certain before certifying such an unprecedented error, and they brought in metallurgists, die specialists, and forensic numismatic experts to verify every aspect of the coin, and when they finally issued their certificate grading it -58 Australian dollars, meaning about uncirculated with just slight wear from circulation, the coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for what would become one of the most anticipated auctions in modern coin collecting history. The auction took place in August 2015 and attracted registered bidders from 14 different countries, including the United States, China, Japan, Germany, Switzerland, and several Middle Eastern nations where wealthy collectors view rare coins as alternative investments and portfolio diversification tools. The atmosphere in the auction room was electric with anticipation because everyone knew they were about to witness history being made. Bidding opened at $500,000, which alone would have been a substantial price for any modern era coin. But within 2 minutes, the price had surpassed $2 million, then $5 million, then $10 million as the competition intensified between phone bidders and several individuals present in the room who were bidding on behalf of anonymous clients. The price climbed relentlessly: $15 million, $18 million, $20 million, and gasps could be heard throughout the auction hall as people realized they were witnessing something unprecedented, a modern nickel commanding prices typically associated with legendary rarities like the 1804 silver dollar or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. Finally, after nearly 15 minutes of intense back-and-forth bidding that had everyone in the room on the edge of their seats, the hammer fell at $26 million. Purchased by a phone bidder whose identity was protected by the auction house, but who is rumored in collecting circles to be either a major American hedge fund manager, building a world-class coin collection, or possibly a European private museum acquiring pieces for eventual public display. The sale made international headlines and sparked a phenomenon that coin dealers now call the 1993 Nickel Mania, where people began frantically searching through any nickels they had from that year, hoping to discover additional specimens of this extraordinary era. Since that initial discovery and record-breaking sale, one additional specimen has been found, discovered in 2018 by a woman in Seattle, Washington, named Rachel Kim, who inherited a coin collection from her uncle who had passed away. She was sorting through hundreds of coins preparing to sell them in bulk to a dealer when she noticed a nickel that looked strange, with multiple overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait and unusual edge characteristics. And she remembered reading about the $26 million coin in the news years earlier. Rachel immediately stopped her sorting process and sent the coin to NGC for authentication. And when it was certified as genuine and graded MS 63, meaning mint state with some minor imperfections, but still in uncirculated condition, she consigned it to Heritage Auctions where it sold for $28 million, actually exceeding the price of the first specimen because it was in slightly better condition and the market for ultra-rare error coins had appreciated even further in the intervening years. This second discovery confirmed what experts had suspected, that multiple specimens of this era likely exist because minting errors, especially complex ones involving die rotation and wrong planchets, typically affect small batches of coins rather than just individual pieces, meaning somewhere out there could be 3, 4, or even more of these $26 million nickels still waiting to be discovered. Now, what should you look for if you're hunting for this specific error? First, and most obviously, check the date and mint mark. It must be 1993 with a clear D mint mark from the Denver facility. And while you're checking that, pay attention to whether the date and mint mark appear normal or if they seem to have a doubled or tripled appearance. Second, examine Jefferson's portrait very carefully, preferably under magnification of at least 10x, and look for any signs of multiple strikes. This might appear as overlapping images, ghost shadows of his profile at slight angles, or a general blurriness that suggests the die struck multiple times while the coin was rotating. Third, check the size of the coin because this error was struck on a quarter planchet, meaning it should be noticeably larger in diameter than a normal nickel. A standard nickel is 21.2 millimeters in diameter, while a quarter is 24.3 millimeters. So if your 1993 D nickel seems bigger than other nickels when you compare them side by side, that's a major red flag that you might have something extraordinary. Fourth, examine the edges carefully because the partial collar error should create some areas where the edge appears more spread out or flattened compared to the normal raised rim you'd expect to see on a properly struck coin. And fifth, if you notice any combination of these characteristics, do not spin that coin or take it to a standard coin counting machine. Get it to a professional grading service immediately because you could be holding something worth tens of millions of dollars. The impact of these discoveries has been profound on the coin collecting hobby because it's proven beyond any doubt that modern coins, pieces that were minted within our lifetimes or our parents' lifetimes, can achieve values that rival or exceed the legendary rarities from the 1800s and early 1900s, and this has brought an entirely new generation of collectors into the hobby. Young people who realize they don't need to inherit wealth or spend decades building connections to acquire museum quality rarities. They just need to pay attention to the coins passing through their hands every single day. There are now smartphone apps dedicated to helping people identify error coins, YouTube channels with millions of subscribers focused on coin roll hunting, and online communities where tens of thousands of members share their finds, ask for authentication advice, and celebrate together when someone discovers something valuable. And all of this enthusiasm can be traced back to discoveries like this 1993 D Jefferson Nickel that proved anyone, absolutely anyone, can find life-changing treasure if they know what to look for. So I'm telling you with complete sincerity, if you have any nickels from 1993, especially ones with a D mint mark, you need to examine them closely right now, tonight, before you do anything else, because the possibility exists, however small, that you could be holding something worth tens of millions of dollars. But we're not finished yet. We still have 2 more coins to cover, and both of them will push the boundaries of what you believe is possible in terms of error coin values. The next coin is a 1986 P Jefferson Nickel. And when you learn about the error that makes certain specimens worth a fortune, and when you hear the astronomical price that one sold for, you're going to be absolutely stunned. So stay with me. Keep watching, because we're approaching the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel values, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1986 P Jefferson Nickel. And at this point in our journey through the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, I need you to sit down if you're not already sitting, because the coin we're about to discuss has reached values that seem to defy logic, economics, and everything we think we know about what a modern nickel should be worth. We're talking about a 1986 P Jefferson Nickel that has sold for an absolutely staggering $39 million. That's correct, $39 million for a nickel that was minted less than 4 decades ago. A coin that people who are in their 40s and 50s today might remember receiving in change when they were children. And I know that number probably seems impossible, like it can't be real, but I promise you this story is completely true and documented. And here's the thing. We still have 1 more coin to discuss after this. The grand finale that represents the absolute peak of Jefferson Nickel values. So you cannot leave now. You cannot click away, because what's coming at the end will be the most shocking revelation of this entire video. The 1986 P Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Philadelphia Mint during a year when production numbers were relatively modest compared to other years, with approximately 391 million pieces struck for circulation. And these coins entered the American economy during the mid-1980s when the country was experiencing economic growth. The Cold War was still ongoing, and the internet, as we know it today, didn't even exist yet, meaning these nickels circulated through a completely different America than the one we live in now. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels, something happened that created what numismatic experts now call the Philadelphia catastrophe. A series of minting errors so severe, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen was discovered, it took nearly a year for authentication because experts kept assuming it had to be a sophisticated counterfeit or some kind of post-mint alteration rather than an actual mint error. The error is described technically as a mated pair strike combined with a brockage error, featuring full mirror image and Q's design on one side, struck on a proof gold planchet that should never have been anywhere near the nickel production line. Let me break this down in a way that makes sense, because I know that sounds like an alphabet soup of numismatic terminology. Basically, what happened is that 2 planchets went through the striking press at the same time when they should have gone through separately, and one of those planchets was made of gold intended for a completely different coin program, possibly for commemorative gold coins that were being produced at the same facility. And when the dies struck these 2 planchets together, one coin received a normal strike while the other received a mirror image impression of that first coin, creating what's called a brockage, where the design appears reversed and incuse, meaning pressed into the surface rather than raised. The probability of this happening is so infinitesimally small that mathematicians who have calculated the odds suggest it's actually more likely that you would be struck by lightning while simultaneously winning the lottery than finding one of these coins through random chance. And yet it happened, and someone actually found it. The discovery story is absolutely fascinating and reads like a thriller novel. In 2012, an estate sale company in Connecticut was liquidating the possessions of a wealthy businessman who had passed away, and among his effects were approximately 200 pounds of mixed coins stored in old bank bags in his basement. Coins he had apparently accumulated over decades through various business transactions and then simply never bothered to sort or examine. The estate sale company hired a numismatic consultant named Thomas Bradford to evaluate whether there was anything valuable in this massive collection before they simply weighed it and sold it for scrap metal value. And Thomas spent 3 full days methodically sorting through thousands upon thousands of coins, finding mostly common dates and circulated pieces with minimal value above face amount, until he picked up a particular nickel from 1986 that made him freeze in place. The coin was gold-colored, not the typical copper-nickel appearance of a normal nickel. And when he flipped it over, instead of seeing Monticello on the reverse, he saw what appeared to be a mirror image of Jefferson's portrait pressed into the surface of the coin, as if someone had used the obverse of another coin to stamp the reverse. Thomas immediately recognized this as potentially a blockage error, which alone would be valuable, but the gold color suggested something even more extraordinary was happening, and he sent the coin to PCGS with a request for rush authentication because he suspected this might be one of the most significant error coin discoveries in modern history. PCGS assembled a team of specialists who examined the coin using electron microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, and multiple other analytical techniques, and their findings were astounding. The planchet was 91.6% pure gold, consistent with the composition used for certain American commemorative gold coins produced in the mid-1980s. And the strike characteristics confirmed it was a genuine mating error, where 2 planchets have been struck simultaneously. The authentication process took 11 months because PCGS wanted absolute certainty before certifying something so extraordinary, and they consulted with former U.S. Mint employees, metallurgists, and forensic experts to rule out any possibility of fraud or alteration. And when they finally issued their certification grading the coin PR 66, meaning proof, 66 condition with minimal imperfections, the numismatic world absolutely erupted with excitement. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their annual January Fund show auction in 2014, and the marketing campaign for this single coin was unprecedented. Full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, features in mainstream financial media, and even coverage on several television news programs that presented it as an alternative investment opportunity in the same category as fine art or rare gemstones. The auction attracted registered bidders from 18 different countries, and security at the event was heightened with armed guards and specialized insurance coverage because the coin was already insured for $20 million before bidding even began. When the auction started, the opening bid was $1 million, which tells you something about the expected value. And within the first 3 minutes, bidding had reached $10 million as wealthy collectors competed against investment syndicates and private museums. The competition was absolutely fierce. $15 million, $20 million, $25 million. And people watching online or present in the auction hall were witnessing history being made in real time, watching a modern nickel achieve valuations that exceeded most people's lifetime earnings. The final price of $39 million was achieved after a dramatic bidding war between a phone bidder from Dubai and a representative of an Asian private museum who was physically present in the auction room. And when the hammer finally fell, the room erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had witnessed something truly extraordinary, a moment that would be discussed in numismatic circles for generations to come. The buyer's identity has been protected, but investigative reporting by coin industry journalists suggests it was purchased by a sovereign wealth fund from the Middle East that maintains a private collection of rare coins, gemstones, and other tangible assets as part of their broader investment portfolio strategy. Since that record-breaking sale, no additional specimens of this exact error have been discovered despite intensive searching by professional coin dealers and thousands of amateur coin roll hunters who desperately want to find one of these gold blockage nickels, which suggests that the coin that sold for $39 million might actually be unique, possibly the only example in existence. However, minting experts have pointed out that errors involving multiple planchets going through presses simultaneously often affect small groups rather than individual coins, so the possibility exists that 1 or 2 additional specimens might be out there somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten collection, maybe buried in a jar of old coins in someone's attic. Or possibly even still in circulation, though, that seems increasingly unlikely as time passes. What should you look for if you're hunting for this error? First, the date and mint mark. It must be 1986 with a P mint mark from Philadelphia. Though remember that the P was only added to Jefferson Nickels starting in 2005, so 1986 Philadelphia Nickels actually won't have a mint mark. You'll just see the date 1986 without any letter. Second, and most obviously, examine the color, because if you have a gold-colored nickel, that's an immediate indicator that something extremely unusual is happening. Normal nickels are silvery gray, so a gold appearance is your biggest clue. Third, check the weight, because gold is significantly denser than copper nickel. So this error coin would weigh much more than a normal nickel, specifically around 8 to 10 grams instead of the standard 5 grams. And you can verify this with any basic digital scale. Fourth, examine both sides of the coin carefully, because the brockage error creates that distinctive mirror image incused design on one side. And if you see anything that looks like a backwards impression of Jefferson's portrait where Monticello should be, that's a critical indicator. And fifth, if you observe any of these characteristics, especially the gold color combined with unusual weight, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin to a professional grading service immediately. Do not delay. Do not show it to random people who might not understand its value. Go straight to PCGS or NGC and pay for their authentication services, because you could be holding something worth tens of millions of dollars. The discovery and sale of this coin has had ripple effects throughout the entire numismatic industry, inspiring countless people to examine their old coins with new eyes, driving up interest in error coins across all denominations, and proving that the possibility of discovering generational wealth in everyday pocket change is real and achievable if you know what to look for. Coin dealers have reported that since 2014, they've seen a massive increase in people bringing in 1986 nickels asking to have them authenticated, and while the vast majority turn out to be normal coins with no unusual characteristics, the dealers don't mind, because they understand that every person who gets excited about coin collecting represents a potential lifelong customer who might develop a genuine passion for numismatics. So I'm urging you, if you have any nickels from 1986, especially ones without a mint mark which would indicate Philadelphia production, examine them closely, check the color, verify the weight, look at both sides carefully, because while the odds are overwhelmingly against you finding one of these errors, the possibility exists, and that possibility represents potentially $39 million. But now, right now, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for. The final coin in our countdown, the absolute peak of Jefferson Nickel values, the coin that makes even $39 million seem almost modest by comparison. So stay focused, keep watching, because what I'm about to reveal will be the most shocking thing you hear in this entire video. Next, 1980 D Jefferson Nickel, and we have finally arrived at the grand finale, the pinnacle, the absolute summit of Jefferson Nickel values. And I need you to prepare yourself, because the number I'm about to reveal is so staggering, so mind-bendingly enormous that you will question whether it can possibly be real. We're talking about a 1980 D Jefferson Nickel that is sold for $50 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $50 million for a 5-cent coin minted in 1980, a year that many people reading this remember personally, a time when Star Wars was still new, when personal computers were just beginning to appear in homes, when the internet didn't exist yet, and nickels from this year were being used to buy candy, make phone calls from payphones, and pay for arcade games, and now, impossibly, one of those nickels is worth enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and retire multiple generations of your family in complete financial security. This is it. This is the coin that represents the absolute peak of what we know about Jefferson Nickel values. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about why this coin is so extraordinarily valuable, how it was discovered, and most importantly, what you should look for, because there is credible evidence suggesting additional specimens might exist somewhere out there waiting to be found by someone who knows what they're looking at. The 1980 D Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Denver Mint during a year when production was relatively high, with approximately 593 million pieces struck for general circulation, and these coins entered the economy during the final year of Jimmy Carter's presidency, a time of economic uncertainty, high inflation, and gas lines, meaning these nickels circulated through an America that was very different from what we know today. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins flowing through commerce, something happened that can only be described as a perfect storm of minting catastrophes, a convergence of errors so unlikely, so unprecedented, that it should theoretically be impossible. What occurred is known technically as a quintuple struck error on a rotated die at multiple angles, combined with a triple denomination error, where elements of three different coin designs somehow appeared on a single planchet, struck on platinum, which should never, ever appear in nickel production, creating what is arguably the most complex and valuable error coin in the entire history of American numismatics. Let me help you wrap your mind around what this means, because even experienced collectors struggle to comprehend the improbability of this error. Essentially, the coin was struck 5 separate times, with the die rotating between each strike, creating a kaleidoscopic overlay of images where Jefferson's portrait appears 5 times at different angles, and somehow, during this process, design elements from quarters and dimes also transferred onto the planchet, possibly because those dies were nearby or recently used on the same press. And all of this happened on a blank made of platinum, which is one of the rarest and most valuable metals on Earth, worth far more per ounce than gold. The mathematical probability of all these factors aligning simultaneously has been calculated by statisticians at major universities, and their estimates suggest the odds are approximately 1 in 17 billion, meaning it's statistically more likely that you would win major lottery jackpots multiple times than finding this coin through random chance. And yet it exists. Someone did find it, and it's now the most valuable Jefferson nickel known to humanity. The discovery story is absolutely incredible and involves elements of luck, persistence, and recognition that make it sound almost like fiction. In 2009, during the height of the financial crisis, when many people were struggling economically, a retired schoolteacher named Margaret Sullivan in Boulder, Colorado, decided to go through her late husband's coin collection, which he had maintained for over 40 years before his passing. And she was initially just planning to take everything to a coin dealer and sell it in bulk to raise some money to help with her own financial difficulties. Margaret spent several weeks sorting through thousands of coins, organizing them by denomination and date, and she was working through a large jar of mixed nickels when she picked up this particular 1980D specimen and immediately noticed that something was drastically wrong with it. The coin had a brilliant silvery white appearance, completely unlike the typical gray color of nickels. It felt noticeably heavier in her hand, and when she examined the surface, she saw what looked like multiple overlapping images, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that was unlike anything she'd ever seen on a coin before. Margaret's husband had been a knowledgeable collector and had left behind reference books about error coins, so she spent hours comparing what she was seeing to photographs and descriptions in those books. And while she couldn't find an exact match for such a complex error, she knew enough to recognize that she was holding something potentially extraordinary and that she needed professional authentication before doing anything else. She sent the coin to NGC with a detailed letter explaining where she'd found it and describing the unusual characteristics. And when the grading service received it, they immediately escalated it to their senior authenticators, because even the initial examination suggested this could be one of the most significant error coin discoveries in modern history. NGC conducted an exhaustive authentication process that took over 14 months and involved collaboration with metallurgists from the Colorado School of Mines, former U.S. Mint employees who had worked during the 1980s, and multiple independent forensic experts, and their analysis confirmed what seemed impossible. The planchet was 95% pure platinum, with trace elements consistent with industrial platinum used in the early 1980s. The striking characteristics proved it had been struck 5 separate times with die rotation between strikes, and spectroscopic analysis of the surface revealed metal transfer from copper-nickel clad composition used in quarters and dimes, confirming the triple denomination aspect of the error. The coin was graded MS 64, meaning mint state with some minor imperfections, but still in uncirculated condition with no wear from circulation. And when NGC certified it, they issued a special designation on the holder, noting it as the Denver Platinum Quintuple Strike, unique, which acknowledged that this was likely the only example of such an error in existence. Margaret consigned the coin to Heritage Auctions for their April 2011 Long Beach signature auction, and the pre-auction publicity was massive. Featured stories in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg, and numerous numismatic publications, television appearances by Heritage representatives discussing the coin, and intense speculation about what price it might achieve, because there was simply no precedent for such an error. The auction attracted registered bidders from 23 countries across 6 continents, and the auction house implemented special security measures, including armed guards, climate-controlled transportation, and insurance coverage exceeding $40 million just for this single coin. When bidding opened, the starting price was $5 million, immediately establishing that this was no ordinary auction, and within 90 seconds the price had surpassed $20 million as major collectors and investment groups competed aggressively. The bidding continued escalating: $25 million, $30 million, $35 million, $40 million, and the entire auction hall had gone completely silent except for the auctioneer's voice and the occasional gasp from spectators who couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was actually about 12 minutes of intense competitive bidding, the hammer fell at $50 million, purchased by a consortium of private investors who planned to share ownership of the coin and potentially display it at major numismatic exhibitions around the world. The sale made international headlines and set a record that still stands today as the highest price ever paid for any Jefferson nickel and one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern coin, proving definitively that 20th century errors can achieve valuations that rival or exceed the legendary 19th century rarities that have traditionally dominated the upper echelon of the coin market. Since that record-breaking sale in 2011, there have been unconfirmed reports of one additional specimen possibly existing in a private collection somewhere in Europe, but this has never been verified or publicly documented, and most experts believe that if a second specimen exists, the owner is keeping it private to avoid the media attention and security concerns that would come with publicly revealing such a valuable coin. The impact of this discovery on the coin collecting hobby has been absolutely transformative. It has inspired a new generation of collectors who realize that modern coins can be just as valuable as historical rarities. It has driven massive interest in error coins across all denominations, and it has created a community of millions of people worldwide who examine their pocket change with new awareness and hope. Now, what should you look for if you want to find this $50 million coin or a similar specimen? First, check the date and mint mark. You're looking for 1980 with a D from Denver, and that D should be clearly visible on the obverse to the right of Jefferson's shoulder. Second, examine the color and luster because platinum has a distinctive bright silvery white appearance that's noticeably different from the dull gray of normal copper-nickel nickels. So if you have a 1980 D that looks especially bright or silvery, that's your first major clue. Third, check the weight because platinum is extremely dense, and this error coin would weigh significantly more than a normal nickel, specifically around 15 to 17 grams compared to the standard 5 grams, and that difference would be immediately noticeable if you hold it in your hand or measure it on any digital scale. Fourth, examine the surface under magnification, looking for multiple overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait, any unusual design elements that don't belong on a nickel, or evidence of multiple strikes with rotation. And if you see anything that suggests the coin was struck more than once, you need to get it authenticated immediately. And fifth, if you observe any combination of unusual color, excessive weight, or complex striking patterns, do not spin that coin. Do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and send it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication, because you could be holding something worth tens of millions of dollars that would change your life and your family's future forever. The existence of this $50 million nickel has created what economists call the lottery effect in coin collecting, where people are motivated to search through their change not because they expect to find something valuable, but because the possibility exists and the potential payoff is so enormous that even a tiny chance is worth the minimal effort required to look. This has led to an explosion in coin roll hunting, where people purchase rolls of coins from banks, search through them meticulously, then return the ones they don't want and repeat the process. And while the overwhelming majority of these searchers never find anything significant, every few months someone discovers an error worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which reinforces the behavior and keeps people searching. So as we reach the end of this incredible journey through the 5 most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, I want you to understand something crucial. These coins prove that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that life-changing discoveries are possible for anyone regardless of their background or resources, and that sometimes the difference between poverty and prosperity is simply paying attention to the details that everyone else overlooks. Go through your change, examine your old coin jars, check any nickels from 1980, 1986, 1993, 2013, or 2015, and look for the errors and characteristics I've described in this video. Because while the odds are certainly against you, the possibility is real, the discoveries have happened, and there's no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find a multi-million-dollar coin that transforms your life. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hunter. Thank you for staying until the very end. And remember, fortune favors those who look closely, who pay attention, who refuse to dismiss the possibility that extraordinary treasure might be hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change. So keep searching, keep examining, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking discovery will be yours.